You're standing in the middle of a storm, surrounded by challenges, doubters, and enemies who think they've already won. But let me tell you something powerful. The battle isn't yours, it's God's. And when God steps in, every force against you will bow, every obstacle will crumble, and every enemy will witness a victory they cannot deny. God's plan is something that operates far beyond human comprehension. It's not limited by circumstances, opposition, or the opinions of others. It's designed with precision, woven together with purpose, and rooted in the infinite wisdom of the Creator. What God sets in motion cannot be derailed, delayed, or destroyed by anyone or anything. This truth should provide comfort, especially when life feels chaotic or unfair. You may face obstacles, feel betrayed, or even doubt yourself, but none of these things can alter the course God has laid out for your life. Think about this for a moment. The very God who created the universe, who designed every intricate detail of life, has a specific plan for you. It's not a generic plan or a backup option. It's one crafted with your name on it, personalized to your potential, your gifts, and your purpose. But here's the thing. The fulfillment of God's plan doesn't depend on how powerful or resourceful you are. It doesn't require you to have all the answers, all the connections, or all the strength. It's not about what you can do, it's about what He can do through you. Sometimes it's easy to forget this when things aren't going the way you hoped. You may look at your circumstances and feel like God's promises are slipping through your fingers. Maybe you've experienced rejection, failure, or loss, and now you're questioning whether God's plan is still in motion. But let me remind you, God is not a man that He should lie. When He makes a promise, He keeps it. His plan for your life is not canceled just because you've encountered some setbacks. The opposition you face may feel overwhelming, but it cannot overpower God. People may try to block your progress, discredit your name, or sabotage your success, but their efforts are futile against the will of God. He is the ultimate architect of your destiny, and He knows how to reroute, rebuild, and restore. When others close a door in your face, God has the power to open a bigger one. When someone tries to dig a pit for you, God can turn that very pit into a platform to elevate you. It's important to understand that God's plan doesn't always look the way we expect it to. Sometimes the road is marked with challenges, detours, and seasons of waiting. But these moments are not evidence of failure, they are part of the process. God uses everything, even the trials and the pain, to shape you, to prepare you, and to strengthen you for what's ahead. If you're in a season of struggle right now, don't mistake it for the end of the story. It's just a chapter, and God is still writing. Think about Joseph in the Bible. He was betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and thrown into prison. If you looked at his life during those dark moments, it might have seemed like God's plan had been derailed. But in reality, every setback was a setup for something greater. God was orchestrating the events of Joseph's life to position him as a ruler in Egypt, to save an entire nation, and to fulfill a purpose far beyond what Joseph could have imagined. The same is true for you. What may look like a delay or a detour is often God's way of preparing you for something greater. He sees the bigger picture. While you're focused on the immediate problem, God is focused on the ultimate purpose. While you're wondering how you'll get through the next day, God is arranging opportunities for the next season. His plan is bigger than your perspective, and His ways are higher than your ways. Here's the key: you have to trust Him, even when you don't understand. Trust that He's working behind the scenes, even when you can't see the evidence. Trust that He's aligning the right people, the right resources, and the right timing to bring His plan to fruition. Faith is not about having all the answers, it's about believing that God does. It's also important to remember that God's plan is not limited by your mistakes. Sometimes we disqualify ourselves from His blessings because of our past. We think that because we've made wrong choices or taken the wrong path, God's plan is no longer valid. But let me tell you something: God is a redeemer. He specializes in taking broken pieces and creating something beautiful. He can use your failures as stepping stones to your future. Even when others try to discredit you or remind you of your flaws, God sees your potential. He sees who you can become, not just who you are right now. People may write you off, but God will never give up on you. His plan is not based on human approval, it's based on his divine purpose. When life feels uncertain, when the odds seem stacked against you, and when you're tempted to give up, remind yourself of this truth: God's plan is unstoppable. It's bigger than any obstacle, stronger than any opposition, and more enduring than any failure. Trust in that plan, walk in faith, and know that nothing can stand in the way of what God has in store for you. When God decides to bless you, he doesn't do it in secret. He doesn't hide it away, as if it's something to be ashamed of or to keep quiet about. No, God works in ways that leave no room for doubt about his power and his favor over your life. He makes it clear to the world, especially to those who doubted you, those who tried to hold you back, and those who thought they could stand in the way of his plans. God has a way of turning the tables, of making what was meant for harm work for your good, and he does it right in front of the very people who didn't believe you'd make it. There's something powerful and intentional about the way God works. When he prepares a table for you in the presence of your enemies, it's not out of spite or vengeance. It's a demonstration of his sovereignty, his faithfulness, and his ability to overcome any obstacle. He's not doing it to rub it in anyone's face, but to show that his blessings are unstoppable and that his hand is on your life, no matter who or what comes against you. It's a testimony, a message to the world, that his plans cannot be thwarted by anyone. Think about what it means for God to bless you in the presence of your enemies. It means that the very people who underestimated you, who talked about you behind your back, or who actively tried to bring you down will be there to witness your victory. It's not a private moment of success, it's a public declaration that God's favor is on your life. And when God moves like that, there's no denying it. Even your enemies will have to acknowledge that something greater is at work in your life. This isn't about revenge, though. It's not about proving anything to those who doubted you or getting back at those who wronged you. When God blesses you publicly, it's not about you, it's about him. It's about his glory, his power, and his ability to lift you up in ways that no one else could. He uses your life as an example, a living testimony, to show others what he can do. It's not just about you being elevated, it's about others seeing God's hand in your elevation. There's a beauty in how God does this. He doesn't require you to fight the battle yourself. He doesn't ask you to prove your worth or to try to outdo your enemies. He simply asks you to trust him, to stay faithful, and to let him do the work. While you're busy staying focused on your purpose, God is working behind the scenes, orchestrating everything in your favor. And when the time is right, he will bring it all together in a way that no one can deny. Sometimes it's hard to wait for that moment. When you're in the midst of the struggle, when you feel like you're surrounded by people who don't believe in you, it can be tempting to take matters into your own hands. You might want to prove yourself, to defend yourself, or to fight back against those who are coming against you. But God doesn't need your help to prove anything. He doesn't need you to vindicate yourself. All he asks is that you trust him, even when it feels like nothing is happening. The truth is, God is always working, even when you can't see it. He's aligning the right opportunities, preparing the right people, and setting the stage for your victory. And when it happens, it will be undeniable. The very people who thought you wouldn't make it will have no choice but to watch as God's blessings unfold in your life. They won't be able to explain it. They won't be able to deny it. And they certainly won't be able to stop it. But here's the important part: when that moment comes, it's not a time to boast or to look down on anyone. It's a time to give glory to God. It's a time to remember that your success is not because of your own strength, but because of his grace. It's a time to show humility, to remain grounded, and to use your blessing as a way to inspire others. Let your victory be a reflection of God's goodness, not a moment to seek revenge or to make others feel small. There's a reason why God blesses you in front of your enemies. It's not just about the victory itself, it's about the process. It's about the journey that brought you to that moment and the lessons you learned along the way. It's about showing that even in the face of opposition, even when it seemed like the odds were against you, God's plan was still in motion. It's about reminding you and everyone watching that no weapon formed against you can prosper when God is on your side. So when the blessing comes, let it be a moment of gratitude. Thank God for bringing you through the storm, for using your struggles to strengthen you, and for turning your trials into triumphs. Remember that the table He has prepared for you is not just a feast for you to enjoy, but a testimony for others to see. It's a reminder that God's blessings are not just for private celebration, but for public demonstration of His faithfulness and power. And when that happens, all you need to do is give Him the glory. Trusting God's timing is one of the most profound acts of faith you can exercise in your life. It's an acknowledgement that, while you may not always understand the why or the when, God's plans are perfect and His timing is flawless. There's a peace that comes with truly letting go of the need to control every aspect of your life and surrendering to the understanding that God sees the entire picture when you can only see a small part. He knows what you need when you need it and how best to deliver it. In a world where instant gratification is often prioritized, waiting on God's timing can feel challenging. We're conditioned to want results immediately. We want to see progress, outcomes, and answers to our prayers right now. But God's ways are higher than our ways, and His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. What we often perceive as delays are, in fact, divine alignments. God is not withholding blessings from you, He's preparing you for them. He's ensuring that everything is in its rightful place, that you're equipped to handle what's ahead, and that the timing aligns perfectly with His greater purpose for your life. There's a reason why God doesn't give us everything we ask for the moment we ask for it. Sometimes we're simply not ready. If you were to receive a blessing prematurely, it could overwhelm you or even become a burden rather than a gift. Imagine planting a seed and demanding it produce fruit the very next day. That's not how growth works. The seed needs time to take root, to grow, and to mature before it can bear fruit. The same principle applies to God's blessings. They come in their due season, not a moment too early or too late. While you're waiting, God is working. He's preparing the blessing for you, and at the same time, He's preparing you for the blessing. He's shaping your character, strengthening your faith, and teaching you lessons that will be vital for the next stage of your journey. Waiting is not a passive act, it's an active process of trusting, growing, and aligning yourself with God's will. It's in the waiting that you learn patience, resilience, and reliance on Him. These are qualities that will not only sustain you in the moment, but carry you through life's challenges. Sometimes the waiting season feels long and uncertain. You might wonder if God has forgotten you or if He's even listening to your prayers. But rest assured, God is always on time. He's never early, never late, and never indifferent to your needs. What feels like silence is often a season of preparation. It's in these moments that your faith is tested and refined. Will you trust Him when the answers aren't immediate? Will you remain faithful when you don't see the results? True faith is not about seeing, it's about believing. The Bible is filled with examples of people who trusted God's timing, even when it didn't make sense to them. Abraham and Sarah waited years for the promise of a child. Joseph endured betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment before stepping into his destiny. David was anointed king as a young man, but didn't take the throne until years later. Each of these individuals faced delays and challenges, but those delays were not denials. They were part of God's perfect plan to prepare them for what was to come. In your own life, the same principle applies. The dreams and desires God has placed in your heart are not forgotten. He knows what He's doing, even when you don't understand it. Sometimes the things you're praying for require not just preparation on your part, but also alignment of circumstances and people. God is not just working on you, He's orchestrating events, moving pieces, and arranging details in ways you can't see. Trust that He's working all things together for your good, even when it feels like nothing is happening. One of the most beautiful aspects of trusting God's timing is the peace it brings. When you stop striving and start trusting, you release the anxiety and frustration that come with trying to control everything. You begin to rest in the assurance that God is in control and that His plans for you are good. This doesn't mean the waiting is always easy, but it does mean you're not waiting alone. God is with you every step of the way, guiding you, comforting you, and reminding you of His promises. Waiting on God's timing also teaches you to appreciate the blessings when they come. There's a depth of gratitude that comes from knowing what it took to get there. You recognize the journey, the lessons, and the growth that occurred along the way. You see how God's timing was perfect, how His ways were better than yours, and how His plans exceeded anything you could have imagined. While you wait, keep your faith strong. Keep praying, keep seeking, and keep trusting. Trust that God's timing is not a reflection of delay or neglect, but a demonstration of His love and wisdom. Trust that He knows what you need before you even ask, and that He's already working on your behalf. Trust that when the time is right, His blessings will come, and they will come in a way that leaves no doubt about His goodness and faithfulness. Living a life focused on faith rather than the approval of others is a decision that transforms not just your actions, but your entire perspective on life. It's about understanding that the opinions of people are fleeting and unreliable, while the foundation of faith in God is unshakable and eternal. When you live for the approval of others, you tether your worth and identity to something fragile, something that changes with the winds of opinions and trends. But when you focus on faith, you root yourself in something far greater, far more enduring, a relationship with the Creator who knows you, loves you, and has a purpose for your life. Seeking the approval of others often leads to a cycle of frustration and disappointment. No matter how hard you try, you'll never be able to please everyone. Someone will always have an opinion about what you're doing, how you're doing it, or why you're doing it. The reality is, people's opinions are often shaped by their own insecurities, biases, and limited understanding. Basing your decisions and sense of self-worth on something so unstable will leave you exhausted and unfulfilled. But when you focus on faith, you begin to live for an audience of one. You realize that the only approval that truly matters is God's, and His approval isn't based on superficial achievements or human validation. It's based on your heart, your obedience, and your trust in Him. Faith is about believing in what you cannot see, trusting in what you may not fully understand, and surrendering to a plan that is greater than your own. It's about aligning your life with God's will, even when it goes against the grain of what society values or expects. This can be challenging, especially in a world that constantly pressures you to conform, to seek validation, and to measure your worth by external standards. But faith calls you to rise above that. It calls you to look beyond the temporary and focus on the eternal. It reminds you that your identity is not found in what people say about you, but in what God says about you. When you focus on faith, you begin to live with a sense of purpose and clarity that no human approval can provide. You realize that your life is not about pleasing people, but about fulfilling the calling that God has placed on your heart. This doesn't mean you ignore others or dismiss their feelings, but it does mean you prioritize God's voice over all others. His guidance becomes the compass that directs your path, and His approval becomes the affirmation that sustains you. The freedom that comes from focusing on faith is unparalleled. You no longer have to carry the weight of trying to meet everyone's expectations. You no longer have to worry about being liked or accepted by people whose opinions may change tomorrow. Instead, you can walk confidently in the knowledge that God's love for you is constant, unchanging, and unconditional. This doesn't mean you won't face criticism or opposition. In fact, staying true to your faith often invites resistance. But when you're grounded in God's approval, you're able to withstand those challenges because you know that your foundation is secure. Focusing on faith also gives you the courage to live authentically. You're no longer bound by the fear of judgment or rejection, because your identity is rooted in something greater than public opinion. You're able to make decisions based on what God is leading you to do, rather than what others expect or demand from you. This kind of authenticity is liberating, and it allows you to live a life that is true to who you are and what you believe. It also inspires others, because when people see someone living boldly in their faith, it encourages them to do the same. Faith doesn't just free you from seeking approval, it also empowers you to love and serve others without expecting anything in return. When you're not consumed by the need for validation, you're able to give freely, to act selflessly, and to pour into others without worrying about how it will be received. Your actions are driven by a desire to honor God, not by a desire to gain approval or recognition. This kind of selflessness is rare in a world that often prioritizes personal gain, but it's a reflection of the kind of love that God calls us to embody. There will always be moments when the temptation to seek approval creeps in. It's a natural part of being human to want to be liked, to want to be understood, and to want to be valued. But faith reminds you to shift your focus. It reminds you that your worth is not determined by how many people agree with you, applaud you, or affirm you. Your worth is found in the fact that you are a child of God, created with a purpose and loved beyond measure. When you internalize this truth, you become unshakable. You're no longer swayed by criticism or dependent on praise, because you know where your true value lies. Living a life focused on faith doesn't mean you'll never face challenges, doubts, or moments of weakness, but it does mean you have a foundation to stand on when those moments come. It means you can navigate life's uncertainties with confidence, knowing that God is guiding your steps and that His approval is all you need. It means you can let go of the need to prove yourself to others and rest in the assurance that you are already enough in God's eyes. And that is a freedom worth embracing. Victory can be a moment of great joy, a time to celebrate the culmination of hard work, perseverance, and faith. It is a season that brings acknowledgement of the effort invested and the sacrifices made along the way. Yet, in these moments of triumph, the call to remain humble becomes more critical than ever. True greatness is not just about achieving success, it is about how you carry yourself once you've reached the pinnacle. Humility in victory is not a weakness or a failure to recognize your own accomplishments. It is a sign of strength, wisdom, and gratitude, a testament to understanding the bigger picture. The danger of victory is that it often tempts people into pride. Pride whispers that you succeeded on your own, that you are better or more deserving than others, and that you no longer need anyone else's help. It blinds you to the reality that no victory is ever truly achieved alone. Whether through the guidance of a mentor, the prayers of a loved one, or the unseen hand of God orchestrating opportunities, your success is built upon more than just your individual efforts. When you remain humble in victory, you acknowledge this truth. You recognize that every step forward was made possible by more than just your strength, skill, or intelligence. Humility keeps your heart grounded in gratitude, reminding you that your triumphs are a gift, not an entitlement. Humility in victory also protects you from complacency. When you allow success to inflate your ego, it becomes easy to rest on your laurels, assuming that past achievements guarantee future success. But life is not static, and neither are the challenges it presents. Remaining humble keeps you in a posture of continuous growth. It reminds you that there is always more to learn, more ways to improve, and more opportunities to serve others. It prevents you from becoming stagnant and keeps you moving forward with a spirit of determination and curiosity. Humility pushes you to ask, how can I do better? How can I use this victory to create a positive impact? Another reason humility is so crucial in moments of victory is the way it affects your relationships. Success has a way of changing how others see you, and if you're not careful, how you see others. Pride can create distance, making you feel as though you are above those who haven't achieved what you have. It can cause you to look down on others, or to forget those who supported you when you were struggling. But humility bridges that gap. It reminds you that everyone is on their own journey, facing their own battles. It allows you to celebrate your success without belittling anyone else's efforts. When you remain humble, you inspire respect and admiration, not resentment or envy. People are drawn to those who succeed with grace, those who use their victories to lift others up rather than to build walls around themselves. Victory is also an opportunity to reflect on the lessons learned along the way. Every triumph comes with its share of struggles, failures, and moments of doubt. Humility allows you to see those moments not as weaknesses, but as essential parts of the journey. It helps you appreciate the resilience and character you develop through the process. When you reflect with humility, you gain a deeper understanding of what it took to get where you are, and you carry those lessons forward. This reflection not only enriches your own life, but equips you to guide and encourage others who may be walking similar paths. Humility in victory ensures that your success does not become a barrier to your faith. It can be tempting to attribute all the credit to yourself, forgetting the role that God played in opening doors, providing strength, and orchestrating events in your favor. Humility keeps your focus on Him, reminding you that every good thing comes from above. It keeps you in a posture of gratitude and dependence, recognizing that no matter how much you achieve, you still need God's guidance, wisdom, and grace. Victory without humility risks turning you away from the very source of your blessings, but victory with humility strengthens your relationship with God, as it acknowledges His hand in your success. Humility also allows you to handle future challenges with grace. Life is full of ups and downs, and no one stays on top forever. When you remain humble in victory, you prepare yourself to face setbacks without bitterness or despair. You understand that success is not the ultimate goal, but a part of a greater journey. Humility reminds you that your worth is not tied to your achievements, and it allows you to navigate both victories and defeats with a steady heart. Humility in victory creates a ripple effect. When you succeed with humility, you set an example for others to follow. You show them that it is possible to achieve greatness without arrogance, to celebrate without boasting, and to lead without dominating. You inspire others to pursue their own goals with integrity and grace. Your humility becomes a testimony, a reflection of the values and principles that guided you to success in the first place. Victory is a gift, a moment to be celebrated and cherished, but it is also a responsibility. How you handle success speaks volumes about your character and your priorities. When you choose to remain humble in victory, you honor the journey that brought you there, the people who supported you, and the God who made it all possible. Humility is what transforms a fleeting moment of triumph into a lasting legacy of greatness. There are moments in life when the challenges before you seem insurmountable. The obstacles grow larger, the path ahead looks darker, and it feels as though the weight of the world is pressing against you. In these times, it's easy to believe that the battle is entirely yours to fight, that you must summon every ounce of your strength, skill, and strategy to overcome the odds. But the truth is far more profound. The battle is not yours, it belongs to God. This understanding is not a call to passivity, but a reminder of the divine power and presence that goes before you, fights for you, and secures the victory in ways you could never accomplish on your own. When faced with a daunting battle, the natural reaction is to try to take control, to map out a plan, and to rely on your own abilities to navigate the storm. While preparation and effort have their place, they are not the ultimate source of your deliverance. Human strength has its limits, and no matter how capable you are, there are battles that require more than what you can provide. These are the moments when faith becomes your greatest weapon. It is not about retreating or surrendering to the challenges, but about surrendering them to God. It's a shift in perspective, a realization that you are not alone in the fight, and that the outcome does not rest solely on your shoulders. Trusting that the battle is God's means acknowledging His sovereignty over your life. It means recognizing that He sees the entire picture, the past, the present, and the future in ways that you cannot. While you may be overwhelmed by the immediate struggle, God is already working behind the scenes, orchestrating circumstances and aligning events for your good. This understanding doesn't erase the difficulties you face, but it gives you the assurance that you are not fighting in vain. God's plans are greater than your own, and His ways are higher than your ways. When you place your trust in Him, you align yourself with a power that is infinitely greater than anything you could muster on your own. One of the most freeing aspects of knowing that the battle is God's is the release from fear and anxiety. Fear thrives on the belief that you are outmatched, that the situation is hopeless, and that failure is inevitable. But when you trust that God is fighting for you, fear loses its grip. You no longer have to carry the burden of being perfect, of making all the right moves, or of having all the answers. Your role is not to control every aspect of the battle, but to remain faithful, obedient, and steadfast in the face of adversity. This faith doesn't mean the absence of action. It means that your actions are guided by trust rather than fear. God's battles are often won in ways that defy human understanding. Throughout history, there are countless examples of how He has delivered His people in miraculous and unexpected ways. These stories remind us that victory doesn't always come through conventional means or according to our timeline. Sometimes God allows the battle to intensify so that His power and glory can be fully revealed. What may seem like a delay or a setback to you is often a setup for something greater. When you trust that the battle is God's, you open yourself to the possibility of divine intervention and outcomes that exceed anything you could imagine. Another key aspect of this truth is learning to let go of the need for control. Surrendering the battle to God doesn't mean giving up, it means letting go of the illusion that you are in charge. It's about releasing the stress, the striving, and the self-imposed pressure to fix everything on your own. This surrender is not a sign of weakness, but of wisdom. It takes great strength to admit that you need help, that you cannot do it alone, and that you are willing to trust in a higher power. When you let go, you make room for God to step in and do what only He can do. The battles you face are not without purpose. God often uses these struggles to refine your character, strengthen your faith, and prepare you for greater things. When you trust that the battle is His, you begin to see the challenges not as punishments or failures, but as opportunities for growth. Every trial becomes a chance to deepen your reliance on God, to learn patience, and to develop resilience. The very battles that seem designed to break you often become the foundation of your greatest victories when you allow God to take the lead. It's also important to remember that God equips you for the battles He calls you to face. He doesn't send you into the fight unprepared or defenseless. Through His Word, His Spirit, and the community of believers around you, He provides the tools and resources you need to stand firm. Your role is to use what He has given you, to stand in faith, and to trust that He will do the rest. Even when you feel weak or inadequate, God's strength is made perfect in your weakness. He takes what little you have to offer and multiplies it, turning it into something powerful and effective. Understanding that the battle is God's brings a profound sense of peace. It doesn't mean that the road will be easy or that there won't be moments of doubt and struggle. But it does mean that you can face each challenge with confidence, knowing that the outcome is not determined by your limitations but by God's unlimited power. It means that you can rest in His promises, even when the path ahead is uncertain. Victory may not always look the way you expect, but when God is in control, it is always assured. When you trust Him with your battles, you are not only fighting for victory, you are fighting from a place of victory that has already been secured.